I'm deeply honored to receive the William C. Bier Award this year and would like to express my sincere gratitude to the APA Division 36 and the Society for Psychology of Religion and Spirituality. William Bier and I are connected not only by our background in Christian theology, but also by our interest in pastoral psychology, which has drawn both of us into psychology. As a brief biographical note, I remember getting fascinated with pastoral psychology towards the end of my theology master's program in Tübingen in the mid 1970s. At that time, you should know, pastoral psychology and the pastoral care movement were referred to as a Dutch disease or the American disease by critics who considered pastoral psychology to be misguided and a threat to theology and church. It was therefore logical for me, and from a biographical point of view, a stroke of luck, that after some years of working in the Church of Württemberg, I received a scholarship that took me to Yale Divinity School for an STM. And there, studying with Jim Dittus and with his support, I was accepted into the PhD program at Emory University. In Atlanta, I had the good fortune to study with Jim Fowler and write my dissertation about faith development under his supervision. And this is where the topic emerged that should shape the focus of my research, faith development. Today, I look back on a 2-decade-long series of Bielefeld Chattanooga-based research projects, and my partner in the USA always was Ralph Hood. This series of research projects has always included Fowler's faith development interview, besides a comprehensive questionnaire. Thanks to the enormous work of our competent research teams in Bielefeld and Chattanooga, the core database now contains the data of more than 870 faith development interviews, including 324 participants who were interviewed twice or more over a period of several years. On the occasion of receiving the William C. Bier Award, I would like to share some insights and conclusions I have gained over these years. How can I put this in a nutshell? The key concept, of course, is faith, and more specifically, faith in response to the transcendence of the other. For the concept of faith, I draw on the work of Paul Tillich, and for the transcendence of the other, I am inspired by the work of Emmanuel Levinas. I discuss both in greater detail in a recent article titled Faith and the Other, which I actually began to write when I learned that I would receive this award. Here is the reference to this article, including a QR code for download. Faith development is a topic that has been the primary focus of our research for about 30 years. And this year we have come full circle, so to speak, completing the way from stages of faith to styles of faith. Our book, Styles of Faith, presents a response to Fowler's stages of faith. I have published this book together with Job Chen, who received today the Division 36 Early Career Award, and I am grateful and proud for the cooperation with Job. My reflections on the concept of faith and faith development are clearly linked to my work with Jim Fowler. I agree with him about the distinction between faith and religion, which Fowler has referred to William Cantwell Smith, H. Richard Niebuhr, and Paul Tillich. But for the definition of faith, I refer in the meantime to the most precise definition I can think of, which is developed in Tillich's work. The opening paragraph of Tillich's Dynamic of Faith says, faith is the state of being ultimately concerned. This definition of faith as ultimate concern has found some resonance in the psychology of religion and the psychology of meaning making, a topic that I discuss in my article Faith and the Other. However, the radicality of such conceptualization of faith requires changes in how we understand development. This should be briefly explained. About 25 years ago, I realized the need to modify Fowler's model of faith stages into a model of faith styles. I have increasingly realized that this is necessary, that we oppose Fowler's dependency from Kohlberg's logic of development and taking out the cognitive developmental expectancy of a monodirectional stage development. For in this cognitive structural model, to say it with Jill Norm's metaphor, the cart was put before the horse. Epistemology was supposed to promote and transform life history. A real life history approach, however, requires more breadth, more fluidity, and more variety in the ways people find their meaning in life. Thus, my own faith styles model suggests more fluidity and flexibility. I like to compare it with the preference for styles of music by listening to regularly to a musical genre, going to specific concerts, or even by one's own playing. A certain musical style becomes my own, notwithstanding the possibility that I can appreciate music of different styles at the same time. And this figure is the waves that grow and decline. Nevertheless, the revision to a model of faith styles is about meaning making and preserves the anti-fundamentalist direction and hierarchy of the faith development model. Despite the change of names for the single styles and the reduction of their number to 4 that we found necessary in research with adult samples, the model identifies typological differences between an egocentric, sociocentric style, a conventional style, an individuative reflective style, and a xenosophic dialogical style. In retrospect, I understand my work and theory and research in faith development as the attempt of integrating the theory of faith development into psychology. Another related area of research that has really grabbed my attention over the years was deconversion. Deconversion is one of the phenomena representing a fundamental and in some cases radical shift in religiosity and faith that can be understood at least in part as changes in faith development. Together with Barbara Keller, I developed criteria for deconversion that include but go far beyond pure affiliation with a religious tradition. Deconversion may involve moral criticism towards the religious community, intellectual doubt and disagreement with certain beliefs, loss of religious experience. Thus, probably understood, deconversion encompasses a much broader range of biographical changes and developments than pure disaffiliation. To the more radical changes belong, of course, the liberating exit from fundamentalist religious organizations and there is still some research going on. But the variety of deconversion narratives is broader, and not every deconvert fits in the same category, for example, in the pursuit of autonomy category. Nevertheless, from our data, we can report a clear progress in faith development upon deconversion. This is most obvious in the higher frequency of the individuative reflective style and the lower frequency of the conventional style in deconverts, the second column. This effect emerges cross-sectional and longitudinal in our samples of deconverts, as the figure shows. To conclude my brief remarks, I would like to touch on one aspect that has become increasingly apparent in my research. It is my answer to the question about the opposite to egocentrism, ethnocentrism, fundamentalism, prejudice, and xenophobia. And my suggestion is to call this xenosophia. Xenosophia is a neologism that explicitly combines wisdom, Sophia, and the other, xenon or xenos, the guest, the unknown, the alien. Thus, xenosophia refers to the positive wisdom generating process that arises from the encounter to the other and alien. I have introduced the term xenosophia in the development and validation of our religious schema scale that we published in 2010, specifically in the title of one subscale that was named Xenosophia Interreligious Dialogue. And xenosophia has become part of the name of the highest faith style as presented above already. Most recently, I engaged in reading, writing, and publishing about the philosophical depth of xenosophia and the relation to the other. The significance of xenosophia was explicated with reference to Bernhard Waldenfeld's philosophy of the alien. For more details, see my 2024 target article, Wisdom and the Other, in which I also propose a model of styles of responsiveness. This article is now followed by the text Faith and the Other that I have mentioned already. There, my most recent interpretation of xenosophia is based on the reference to the philosophical ethic of Levinas, who most parsimoniously but most powerfully locates the origin of ethics in the transcendence of the other, in the face of the other, looking at the face of the other. Taken together, the tension between the ethnocentric style, including fundamentalism, prejudice, xenophobia, and potential violence on the one hand, and a dialogical xenosophic style that is open, intellectual, humble, and responsive to the other, on the other hand. All of this can be illuminated with reference to the phenomenological philosophies of Waldenfels and of Levinas. The insights drawn from their thought are particularly helpful in conceptualizing styles of responsiveness and for profiling the styles of faith in such a way that they offer a psychologically plausible, effective alternative to othering, prejudice, hatred, and the vicious circles that may result from them. Thanks for your attention.